الناس قد جاءكم برهان من ربكم وأنزلنا إليكم نورا مبينا صدق الله العلي العظيم.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Assalamu alaikum to everybody in Jummah Mubarak. Once again, very grateful, honored, excited to be speaking at our Jummah gatherings about some insights that I have about the Qur'an, alhamdulillah. And last week we established a very important premise. We said that in order for us to recognize the Qur'an as the ultimate source of judgment and the ultimate source of guidance, we must first be able to have a sort of proof so that we can submit to the Qur'an. And so we went into the basics. So we went into the basic foundation of the Qur'an itself. We looked at where the word came from, qara, qahnan, and qareen. And we briefly tied that to the significance that the Qur'an should have in our daily lives. We also looked at the preservation miracle of the Qur'an, and we established that that in itself is a pretty weighty proof of the Qur'an itself. We didn't go over certain scientific miracles and also the miracles of mathematical miracles that are present in the Qur'an due to the shortage of time. However, those themselves are also great proofs. But what happened last week is that we looked at the exterior proofs of the Qur'an. And inshallah, this week what I want to delve into are the interior proofs of the Qur'an, which have more of a significance to sway us towards coming to the Qur'an and reciting the Qur'an. So the verse that I just started off with is from Surah An-Nisa, which is chapter 4 in the Holy Qur'an, and it's verse number 174. It's all the way at the end of the Qur'an, and you could tell if a surah has 176 verses, and these verses are not short verses like the Makki surahs. The verses in Surah An-Nisa are very lengthy because they go on to target the believers of certain laws that have come down about men and women, marriage laws, divorce laws, as well as inheritance laws. So a lot of the times you see in Surah An-Nisa the address to the people is Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu. It's filled with Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu, which is O you who believe, because it's targeting the Madani people who have established themselves to be Muslims. Also you find the address of Ya ayyuhal ladhina utul kitab, O you who have been given the book before, because there was a community of Jews as well living in Medina. But rarely in the surah you find the address Ya ayyuhan nas, and you find that at the end of the surah. And at the beginning, the very first verse of Surah An-Nisa is Ya ayyuhan nas, because it talks about we've created you from a man and a woman, and kind of foreshadowing what the surah is going to be about. It's going to be about laws pertaining to your biological sex, in terms of inheritance, marriage, and divorce. And so at the end, when we hear that address coming, Ya ayyuhan nas, it kind of opens our ears up. That what is Allah now saying that's dedicated not only to the Muslims, but the entire mankind that He's addressing. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الناس قد جاءكم برهان من ربكم وأنزلنا إليكم نورا مبينا. O mankind, there has come to you from your Lord a proof. Burhan is a proof from your Lord. وَأَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكُمْ نُورًا مُبِينًا, and we have sent to you a clear light from ourselves, a clear, manifest, brilliant light. So I want to ask you, this light that Allah is talking about, was it something that we could see with our visible eyes? The light that He's referring to right now, that we've sent down to you a clear light, which is the Qur'an. Is it a visible, manifest light that we can see with our eyes, or is it some other sensation that we are supposed to feel? Like the nur, for example, Nur Mubina is more spiritual. It's not available to our five senses, right? So I want you to hold on to that thought, because I'm going to circle back to it, the power of the unseen that we're going to get into very shortly. But this word burhan, a proof, is very essential in order for us to submit to something, okay? So the Qur'an, even the tone and the language that it uses, it never forces the people into accepting the message of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Neither does it beg the audience to accept the guidance and ordinances of the Qur'an. It addresses us through the use of our faculties, namely that of our logic, reason, and our hearts. And then also our eyes and our ears, but then those are actually powered by the unseen of what we find in our ruh. So ruh, what is ruh? So if you look at Surah Al-Isra, which is number 17 of the Holy Quran, it talks about the ruh. It says, وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ قُلِ الرُّوحُ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. And they ask you, O Muhammad, about the spirit. Say, its nature is known only to my Lord, and you, O humanity, have been given knowledge, but very little of it. Okay, so till today, if we look at the scientists and experts studying consciousness, they haven't derived any concrete knowledge as to what it is. They know that it's a form of energy, and they know that it dissipates at the moment of death, but they haven't actually defined as to what it is. So the Quran 1500 years ago tells us that the ruh, you will never know about it. You've been given very little knowledge about it, right? So the burhan comes in two forms. There's an exterior burhan, exterior proof that we went over last week, which was the preservation of the Holy Quran, that is available to everybody. No one can disagree that that in itself is a pretty big proof and miracle of the Quran being from a source that is not of mankind, it coming from the heavens. There are certain scientific miracles which I'll go over briefly about. The Quran mentions that the sky in Surah Al-Anbiya is a protective ceiling over you. And if we look at the atmosphere right now in the earth that we live in, currently, very recently have we come to the knowledge that it acts as a protective ceiling over us. So the words used in the Quran is a protective ceiling. So if it wasn't for the atmosphere in the nighttime, we would freeze to death. In the daytime, we would burn to death due to the radiation of the sun. So it acts as a protective ceiling for us. And also from certain comets or asteroids, they dissolve themselves when they're entering the atmosphere of the earth. So how could somebody have known 1500 years ago that the sky is a protective ceiling? You know? And when recently we've kind of figured that out. Talks about the mountains acting as things which prevent the earth from shaking underneath you. And we know right now that the mountains are in place, and there's places specifically to prevent tectonic shifts that are happening on the earth. So these are all scientific miracles. The Quran is filled with them, and I'm just going briefly over it. But again, these are all exterior proofs of the Holy Quran. So now when we talk about the interior proof of the Holy Quran, one condition of the interior proof happening is, first of all, a submission to the Quran. Okay, a submission is very important. And then a recitation as well of the Holy Quran. So it's not a spectator sport. So I know a lot of us are in discourse here, we use football for an example. You can watch football and never played it in your life, you still view it and you're like, wow, that's a pretty amazing game, you know? But the moment you get into the game, your knowledge of the game changes. Your perspective of the game changes. So now even when you're taken out of the game, you have a greater appreciation of the game outside of it because you've actually participated in it. So similarly, the Quran, we can appreciate it from a distance, but the true appreciation and the change in perspective happens when we enter the game. When we go ahead, open the book, and start the recitation. So this Burhan in Surah An-Nisa that I was talking about is to the whole mankind. This is more of the exterior miracle that is inviting the people to come recite this book so you can get the guidance from Allah. So I would like to turn right now to a verse from the Holy Quran in Surah Al-Rum. Okay, in Surah Al-Rum, it says, أَوَلَمْ يَتَفَكَّرُوا فِي أَنفُسِهِمْ. Have they not reflected upon their own being? يَعْلَمُونَ ظَاهِرًا مِنَ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَهُمْ عَنِ الْآخِرَةِ هُمْ غَافِلُونَ. They only know the worldly affairs of this life externally, but they are totally oblivious of the hereafter. So in Surah Al-Rum, God is inviting us to take a look within ourselves, right? And that's where we will find the submission to Allah. So like we did in Surah Al-Fatiha, we establish, okay, there's a proof that there is a Lord, you know? And then there comes that bridge verse, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. It is only you that we worship and only you that we seek to help. With that submission, then the guidance becomes available to the mu'min. So the Quran follows the same structure. I remember I was having a conversation with a friend about 3 weeks ago, and we were talking about all sorts of things, and we ended up on the topic of the Quran. And I mentioned to him all these things that I'm telling you. Oh, look at the preservation miracle, the fact that it got revealed in this time over a 23-year period. Look what happened to Arabia after it, so on and so on. And he's like, whoa, Shubair, that's dope. You know, that's so dope, like amazing. So I'm like, okay, so would you like to recite it? And he's like, I have to get up early for work tomorrow. So the Quran appeals to logic and reason, that it is a book of miracle. But until we take that first step of submission, then and only then can Allah make His signs more clear to us. And it'll work as almost like it builds upon itself. If we submit first, the signs are shown to us. If the signs are shown to us, we submit further because it's proving itself to us. The moment we submit further, more signs are being shown to us. So to get us to a point, وَسَلِّمُوا تَسْلِيمًا, to get in complete submission. So the word Islam, again, what does it mean? Submission. So to be a Muslim, I think what has to happen is that myself first and foremost, like we have to first understand what it is to be a Muslim, right? A Muslim means a submission to the Lord, that you are submitting to the all-supreme being and to be asking Him for knowledge that you do not know. So inside our breasts, the Quran talks a lot about sudur. Sudur means literally chest or breasts. And another synonym of that is afida, which is also the heart, and qulubihim, which is also hearts. And so in Surah Al-Yunus, بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الناس قد جاءتهم موعظة من ربكم وشفاء لما في صدورهم وهدى ورحمة للمؤمنين. O humanity, once again, يا أيها الناس, indeed there has come to you a warning from your Lord and a cure for what is in the hearts. A cure for what is in the heart. So shifa is not only a physical cure, but also in the Quranic sense, it's a cure for what's in the hearts. في صدوركم وهدى, a guide, ورحمة للمؤمنين, and a mercy for the believers. So this is almost to say that by default, our hearts need a cure. That we come into the world, and by the time we reach maturity, there are certain things that happen that bring tarnishes into our heart. Just like if I was to smoke or drink or eat bad food, there's certain things that will manifest themselves in my physical health, and I'll need a cure after that. So Allah is saying, there's so many things that you're living in your life. There's certain things you're experiencing that are actually bringing a sort of toxicity to your heart. So this is what will present the cure to you. So I'm offering you a cure for what is in the breasts. And just to go now to the point that I mentioned earlier, the manifest light, that being not a physical sensation, but that of a spiritual sensation. So we touched on this last week, that there's a leading indicator in our behavior. The leading indicator of our behavior is our subconscious state inside ourselves. So a lot of times, if you find, if Usher was to come to me right now and be very kind, just for the sake of being kind, something inside of him is actually igniting that process. So there is an unseen aspect taking place that is manifesting itself in a behavior. Or for example, if I were to be very nasty with Usher, very angry, impatient, frustrated, there's something inside me that is igniting that behavior. And if it's of a nasty nature, we have to find a cure for it, And so Allah presents a cure in the Quran for it. So just to go back to what we started off with, there are exterior proofs and there are interior proofs. The interior proofs can only happen when we begin to submit and recite the Quran for ourselves. No one is going to give you those interior proofs on a plate. So in Surah An-Nisa, when it talks about Ya ayyuhan nas, it doesn't say Ya ayyuhal ladhina ulama, or you who are very grounded in knowledge. It's for everybody. This Quran, it'll appeal to everybody at whichever state that they're in their lives. So of course the ulama have greater knowledge than us, but that is not to say that we cannot gain a benefit from the Quran as well. So it appeals to everyone at every level, and it'll give you your proof as soon as you begin to recite it. So what we seek to do is follow the same method of the Quran, in the sense that we try to invite with wisdom, with insight. So there's another actually verse that I want to share with you about Surah Al-Hajj. Surah Al-Hajj, verse 46. I'll just go over the English part. Have they not journeyed in the land that their hearts might understand and their ears might listen? For indeed it is not the eyes that are blinded, it is rather the hearts in the breasts that are rendered blind. SubhanAllah. Like, it's talking about the fact that sure, we have a faculty of vision, but what is actually powering that faculty of vision is that which is in the sudur, which is in the hearts. So if we let Allah into our hearts by means of submission, our eyesight can change. Our hearing can change. We can hear things we never did before. We can see things that maybe we missed out before. So what the Quranic style is that it places a lot of importance on the unseen. If you look at our articles of faith, خَشِيَةَ بِالرَّحْمَنِ الْغَيْبِ خَشِيَةَ الرَّحْمَنِ بِالْغَيْبِ. Believe in what? The Lord who is unseen. Unseen. Nothing in our five senses can tell us that, hey, there's a God. What? Malaika, angels. Can we see the angels? No. Yawm al-Qiyamah. Have we seen, has anybody scientifically proven to us with our five senses that Yawm al-Qiyamah is going to happen? No. These are all matters of the heart. And the matters of the heart are of pivotal importance in the Quran, because they are the ones that generate faith. They are the ones that generate yaqeen, which is a sense of certainty that nothing else can give you. Sure, from a distance you can see with your five senses, yeah, that makes sense. Just like we were talking about death last week. Makes sense, yeah, we're going to die. But who are the people that come enlightened after they've been touched by death? People who go through near-death experiences. They bring a light with them and they actually enlighten the world. They change the world because they know they're living on borrowed time. It has reached their heart from the inside. So similarly, the Quran, certain ordinances, certain maw'idah, which is advices, yeah, they make sense. But they're going to really hit hard home when we let the Quran inside ourselves, when we are willing to submit. And the Quranic nature is such that I'm sure you yourselves, when you've read certain verses, they mean something at one time in your life and they change meaning at the other time in your life. And that is a rahmah from God. That is a risk from Allah, that He is giving you that guidance, that love, that mercy from Him. Rahim, remember that exclusive mercy, because you've submitted. This again ties back to Surah Al-Fatiha. It's the Quran. It tells us how to approach the Quran. We have to profess submission, and when we profess submission, Allah slowly makes clear the signs to us from the inside out. And certain apparent signs from the outside become more meaningful too when we profess our faith. So I just, the second part of the khutbah, I want to go over a segment in the Quran, in Surah Al-Ghashiyah, and I want to analyze the style in which Allah speaks in the Quran. This is just an excerpt of how Allah speaks in the Quran, just to get an idea of maybe how we can learn to invite others to the faith of Islam. It should never be done by force. La ikraha fi din. And it should never be done from a point of vulnerability. It even told Rasulullah cared so much for his people. Imagine, he ascended in Mi'raj, the seven heavens, reached the arsh of Allah, okay, saw the greatest signs of his Lord, then returned back to the dunya to let his people know, hey, this is the truth. Like, come, I've seen it. And you know that I don't lie. He was known for two things before his prophethood: Al-Amin and As-Sadiq. One who is trustworthy. Amana means trust, like a sense of security. Amin and Sadiq, one who doesn't not lie. And the people used to say, it is not you, O Muhammad, that we deny, but it is your Lord that we're denying. Because we know that you don't lie. But we just can't accept this message. It doesn't suit us, we're not comfortable with it. So the point that I was making is that the Prophet saw everything, and he came down and he let them know, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to convince them to come. And only Allah can get in there and do that. So we cannot be in a position like Rasulullah was guilty of it. In the Quran, there's sometimes critiques of Rasulullah saying that, what, you want to dig like a tunnel to the down of the earth because you're so saddened by the fact they won't accept the message? In Surah Ash-Shu'ara, at the beginning of Surah Ash-Shu'ara, maybe you will be so saddened that they're not going to accept the message. Don't be saddened. This is the truth. The tsunami is coming, you know. I'm just going to give you the truth, Allah is saying. Tsunami is coming. You can decide whether you want to take safety or you just want to sit there on the beach and pretend like it's not coming. So Allah entrusted Rasulullah to give the message of truth and not to beg people to come to it. Because the only way someone is going to wholeheartedly submit in full submission is if it makes sense to them. Logically, reasonably, with wisdom and with insight. Never with force and never through begging. So I want to get into that. And also we touched on the etiquettes of recitation of the Quran last week, which I think is so important because we have to be silent, remember? And we have to listen. We have to be silent in our minds, silent in our hearts, and we have to come with full submission so that Allah can fill that empty vessel. If we come empty in silence, Allah can fill it up. But if we come full and scatter-minded and confused, there's no space for Allah to work with in here. So it says it's a shifa. And there's other verses that are just because they hit the point so nicely. Surah Fussilat, the last verse of Surah Fussilat, second last verse. We will show them our signs in the universe and within themselves until it becomes clear to them that this Quran is the truth. Is it not enough that your Lord is a witness over all things? So again, the distinction is made between the exterior and the interior. There are signs outside, but there are signs inside as well. So we can only get those signs if we recite the Quran, inshallah. May we open the Quran with a sincere opening. May we always invite to our Lord with wisdom, insight, logic, and reason. And may we never be of the type to force anyone into our beliefs. That doesn't work. So if you do it out of fear, what happens? It's a very temporary emotion. And the moment that fear leaves, you go back to your old ways. If someone's doing you a favor by coming into Islam, guess what? They're not coming wholeheartedly, just trying to do you a favor. But if someone comes in knowing that this is the truth, this is the haqq al-yaqeen, the certain truth, then they're more likely to reap the benefits of the message which are presented in the Quran. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim wal-Asr. إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. 3 love salawats.